Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
This week at Safeway, shop the 10 for $10 produce sale. With the 10 for $10 produce sale, get items like large avocados, mangoes, green, red, orange, or yellow bell peppers, cucumbers, large lemons, or 16-ounce bags of Signature Farms baby-peeled carrots for the member price of just $1 each. Plus, select meats like Signature Farms 80% lean ground beef and Signature Select extra meaty pork loin back ribs are buy one, get one free this week. Hurry in before these deals are gone. Visit Safeway.com for more deals.
Hello Nest family, delighted to say that for the first time ever after maybe 30 odd episodes, we haven't counted, but into our second season, we are finally doing a Nest podcast in person. D Garb facing D Jones in Melbourne. I've been here for work. Drew's been kind enough to meet me at the Mantra in Southbank. We've sat down with a laptop in front of us and one microphone between the two of us, and we're going to discuss all things Eagles, in particular the draft. Drewy, it's great to see you in person in 3D as opposed to over a Zoom screen.
I don't think I've ever been this excited to look you in the eyes before, Garby. It's nice to see you. We spent a bit of time. Well, did we ever work together properly in Sydney?
Don't think so. Never in the same newsroom or office.
Yeah, so it's been a long time coming, I guess, but good to be here. And I mean, it has been a pretty eventful sort of week and a half, so there's a lot to talk about. But how are you feeling having digested the draft, everything that happened, and obviously from a West Coast point of view, a lot of talking points? Yeah,
massive talking points. I mean, I used to laugh at other clubs getting excited by the draft because we were up there challenging for flags and you think, people getting excited about the draft, who are you? And then this year we had to get excited because we needed youth in the team. We need to regenerate the list. We were likely to use at least 4 picks. We ended up using 5. So it was a big time for us, and I guess we monitored those phantom drafts and everything a little bit more keenly than we had in the past. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to go through every single pick. We're going to talk about the controversy on night 1 of the draft where, there was a bit of narkiness between Eagles fans. And
mostly you.
Well, maybe a bit of me. I'll put my hand up for that. But that's all right. We were all passionate, and we'll go through that in some detail and each player that we've brought into the fold. But on the whole, I think we've done really well. I think we've addressed a need, which is speed in Chesser and Hoff. I think we brought in a player that we thought we couldn't pass on in Bazzo. We brought in a project player for the future in Jack Williams, and then a ready-made player in Greg Clark. So someone who can come in now and be that inside pull that we need, or provide backup to the others if we have injury concerns like we've had the last few years. So I think all in all, we've done as well as we could possibly do on paper, but we never quite know how they materialise.
Yeah, so let's talk about night 1. So this time last year, our first pick in the draft was going to be, pick 55 or something? We end up with Luke Edwards, good player. This time around, we're in at pick 10, which isn't really pick 10, it's pick 12 as we know. And our options are almost limitless because speaking to Ben Waterworth at Fox Footy, he talked about the fact that there was probably a top 8 in the draft who were absolutely locked away the best 8. And then beyond that, then that's when you really earn your money as a recruiter, trying to work out who fits in with our club, who do we need, what skills or skill sets do we need to fulfill? So that talk started, it was probably only about 2 days before the draft, right, when Campbell Chesser's name was coming up. And he hadn't been someone who had really figured prominently in my research or someone who'd come across my desk. So that was a bit of a surprise. And do you think when we had pick 10 in our heads, the idea of trading back and not taking the absolute best player available right then in the draft, is that what spooked people, do you think? I've got more to say on this, but do you think, just instant reaction, did people get spooked by trading back, considering you had a high pick for once?
Yeah, they did, and maybe some of the reactions to that were ridiculous because the trade was so smart. We had a player that we wanted. We were going to get him 2 picks later. We got a future second-round pick for nothing, for absolute free. So it was obviously smart. Now, if Campbell Chesser turns out to be a dud, then that move amounts to nothing. Yeah. And you say, well, why don't you pick this player or that player, Ben Hobbs or Matt Johnson or Josh Sin or whoever it is. But, they identified a need. They brought that player in. They tracked him closely. They kept their cards close to their chest. There are games in the draft. There's a reason why the Eagle links to Chesser only came out a day or two before. They don't want to tip other clubs off. I reckon the Eagles had him as their player they wanted for weeks. Yeah. You don't just make that decision 2 days out. Yeah. But they didn't want to give anyone else a tip off and let anyone go, hang on, this Chesser kid, yeah, he was rated a top 5 pick, a couple of years ago. Should we be looking more closely at him? Why are we not paying attention? I'm not saying the Eagles will be right, but that was clearly the game plan. Let's hope it pays off.
So I'll try and give you my breakdown of how I think this all works. And this is based off discussions I've had, not necessarily with the club, but with people who've studied these players. So if we knew that, say, the top 8 was sort of pretty much locked as it was, I think West Coast would have liked to have had Erasmus. I think that's pretty obvious.
I agree, yeah.
But the overwhelming likelihood was that Fremantle would take Erasmus with their second pick, which they did. Now, there were other players that the Dockers might have preferred to Erasmus, but no one went for a flyer in the first part of the draft. So Erasmus was the best player that fell to Freo, so they were obviously always going to take him. So that meant that then West Coast would have had, you mentioned Sin, who has some qualities that overlap with Chesser, and then Ben Hobbs, who was considered to be the best pure inside midfielder in the draft. Now, my theory here is that obviously we knew we were taking cousin Greg, who was an inside player.
Yeah.
So why would we get Hobbs and Clark? Because then you're making Clark obsolete. So let's go for something a bit different. And Chesser looks to me as though he's got a bit of X factor. Like, he's got some qualities that could make him into a player that you'll look back at the draft and go, geez, I can't believe Chesser ended up getting to 14. So Sin was potentially on Essendon's radar, and Port Adelaide were worried that he wouldn't get to them. So then they were so keen to come up, obviously, and West Coast just knew that Chesser was going to fall to them at 14. So on paper, I understand how it works.
Yeah.
If you end up with Hobbs, who's going to be a good player, but then that makes Clark obsolete. So why not hedge your bets, but let's have the best of both worlds. If you see Clark as potentially being a player who's going to be on the list for another 6 or 7 years, and then I guess the extra little thing on the end is the Vic country. So he's from right on the border of New South Wales and Victoria. He's lived away from home. He gets all that. So there's no concerns about being a flight risk. So I think all in all, and I hated trading back because I was obsessed with, can we trade up? Can we get up? Can we get Erasmus? No one inside the top 10 budged. Yeah. There was not one club that could get into the top 10, and that's because those top 8 or top 9 players were so locked away. Yeah. Everyone saw who they wanted, and they weren't budging. So I think best of a bad situation, the fact that it was 2 father-son guns in the top 10 made it harder for us than it would normally be. But in the end, Chesser could be anything, and I think we need to open our minds up to the possibility that he could be a future superstar.
I'm excited by him. Cousin Greg, of course, is from Succession fame. If you're not a Succession fan, you wouldn't understand that. If you're not a Succession fan, get your house in order. It is that good of a show, and watch it. It is brilliant. I'm excited by Chesser. Look, we'll get onto this now and the reaction to his pick when it was made. I'll start with this quote from Brad Pitt in Moneyball, where he says to his old scout, Brady, and he says, I've sat at those tables with you with those kids and you've told them that you know, and you don't. You don't know. And that is the draft. Nobody knows. Certainly people who are not recruiters, who simply make their assumptions based on phantom draft reports, don't know. The recruiters are the ones who we have to have faith in. You have faith and you judge later. I understand that people wanted Erasmus and then Johnson because he's a WA boy. I get it. And he was rated higher in all the draft predictions than Chesser. So I understand the reaction. I understand as well that people have been spooked by some of our draft failures in recent times. We haven't had a great run the last 3 or 4 years, let's be honest, since the flag in 2018. Overall, I think the Eagles are excellent drafters. Last 3 years haven't been great. So there is reason to question. I understand that. But I was really disappointed with the reaction. And I'll put my hand up. I was on Twitter. I was on the Twitter handle that night and I got in some duels with people, and I apologise if I offended anyone, but we're all being passionate. I was really disappointed with the reaction from Eagles fans. I got to be honest. And I think a few people tracked back pretty quickly within about an hour and realised they went a bit hard, because it did amount to trolling of Campbell Chesser. Put yourself in his shoes, right? You're 18 years of age. You've just been drafted, Drewy. What's one of the first things you want to do after being drafted when you've got some time to yourself?
Well, you want to look at the reaction. You want to see what people are thinking, and especially you want probably some validation about that people are excited for you to be at their club.
I mean, you'd expect validation. So the first thing you're doing, I reckon, is you're going to the Eagles' Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Oh, I want to see their draft announcement. What photo did they use? What did they say about me? And you're going to be seeing, why do we take another halfback flanker? He's only played 6 games in 2 years. Why have we taken this kid instead of Johnson? He's only going to go home in 2 years. I mean, how's that a welcome to life as a West Coast Eagle? Yeah. If you're Campbell Chesser, you're thinking, oh, do I really want to go to this club? The kid doesn't seem bothered by it at all. He seems like a ripping kid. He's just so excited. And I'm sure he's got good people around him who will advise him otherwise. And the reaction afterwards was great from fans who I think did welcome him in the end. And maybe their reaction got the better of them in the first hour or so. I thought it was poor because you don't know. You just don't. So have faith in the recruiters who have done the hard yards. Judge later. Secondly, he fits a need more than Matt Johnson. Like, I got way more excited watching Campbell Chesser's highlights thinking we need outside speed. We need a wingman next season. He might fill that role, if not next season and in the future. Penetrating kick, space on the outside, seems like a mature head. Johnson might be a superstar as well, but, you know, there's question marks over his pace. Can he break games open? Chesser potentially can. Looks like there's more upside in him. Yeah, I just didn't rate the reaction. And also, since when do we lose players interstate? When have we ever lost players to the go-home factor? Chris Judd, but after 6 years, when he won a Brownlow and a flag. Yeah. Beau Waters, Shannon Hearn, Liam Duggan, Andrew Gaff. The list goes on and on. Yeah. Who stay at the club. So I don't see why people were raising that either.
No, I'm with you. And the Vic Country boys are often carefully selected by interstate clubs for that reason, that they're less of a flurry. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what he can become. Who's the kit man who sent over the triple XL?
Now that deserved a smashing. That was embarrassing.
It's supposed to be his big launch photo, and he looks like he's wearing what's like someone fat has worn it and then given it to him, and it's permanently stretched. I don't know who to blame. But it almost adds to it, almost. But I just think he would have liked to have worn a nice slim fitting one, that would have shown off. He's in great nick. Instead, he's wearing like this thing it's like a sail. It'd be like flapping in the breeze. Anyway,
I don't know how that happens. Look, the Eagles made good fun of it in the end. Yeah. But how does that happen? How do you only send over one Guernsey? Surely you just send over like 5, small, medium, large, and just whatever one fits best.
But who fits into that Guernsey? Like that's never going to be bought. That's never going to be worn by anyone.
That was bizarre. That deserved a smashing. So if you got on that, then fair enough. But
so that was night 1. So we come out of it with Campbell Chesser, who could potentially be. I've just got this funny feeling. West Coast just they know what they're doing. They know what they wanted. And outside of the top 6 or top 8, there are no guaranteed rusted on 250 gamers, best and fairest winners. They come from everywhere else in the draft. Yes, like it was written in the stars that Sam Walsh was going to be a superstar. He's pick one. You've got to be crap. You've got to be shit to finish last and get Sam Walsh, and that's just not us. So, looking forward to seeing what he can do. So.
His speed is another thing, right? So he was a junior 100-metre champion, country champion. So that is identifying a need. This draft for us reminds me a little bit of the end of 2017, where we were a bit of a slow, predictable side, similar to last season. And we brought in Rioli and Ryan, and we changed things up in our game plan and moved players around the field. We won the flag the next year. Not saying that'll happen next season, but we've identified a need, and that is pace with Chesser and then Brodie Hoff. Outside players who can break the games open, especially with the new rules, which we admittedly struggled with.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. And the fact that he's only played 6 games in the last 2 years, that's probably the asterisk as far as whether he's ready to play straight away. Yep. But if you're good enough, you're old enough. And he was an under-16 superstar, touted as top 5, as you mentioned. So, Kevin Sheehan, who was on the panel for Fox Footy, his immediate reaction was glowing. Yeah. And he followed him really closely in the Vic 16 system. So
Shift has never seen a bad player, though.
That's true, yeah, that's true. So Brodie Hoff's interesting, isn't he? The Hoff, country footy for most of his junior career, and then 1 season of Colts with Peel. and then makes his debut in the seniors in the last round. What do we know about the Hoff?
I think Hoff is more speculative than Chesser, if you weigh it all up, which I don't mind either, because again, it's identifying a need. A player that we don't think other players will have monitored too much, that developed rapidly at the end, that played against the Waffle Premiers and excelled. It seems to have a good head on his shoulders, seems to be versatile, can move all over the park, and again, feels that need. Outside run and dash, but he's tall, so can move into other areas and be comfortable. I can see Hoff and Chesser challenging for that vacant wing role next season. Like, legitimately, I'm going to throw one of you kids in. Play it out over the off-season, the two of you, duel it. Yeah, you're right. Maybe Chesser 6 games in 2 years counts against him when he steps into the system. Maybe he revels in it. But I can see both of them challenging for it, which is exciting.
Good country boy. I like having country guys in the team. So, yeah, I've got no doubt he'll fit in straight away. Lifelong West Coast fan. I said a lot of excitement in the room, but he did admit in his press conference that it probably came a little bit earlier than he thought. But obviously West Coast had identified him, and the Eagles' next pick wasn't for a little while, I think, so they had to lock him away. So, yeah.
It feels like Simo said, get me pace. Yeah. Like he said to them, we need speed in this team. We are one-paced and predictable. We need youngsters who can come in and break the game open. So those two have done that in that sense, and that's cool. Rhett Bezzo's the one that you do look at, and you don't ever truly know, but you do look at him and you think, this kid's got all the makings of an AFL player. Like, I mean, you saw Mick Ablett on the Fox Footy broadcast saying he had him as a top 10. Like, that's one where I think we should really be buoyed about.
Yeah, so he's got footy pedigree. It's a nice story. Yeah. His dad played 230 games for Swan Districts. Yep. Wore number 1, which Rhett wore in Colts when they won the flag for the Black Ducks. So passed away from cancer when he was 11. I know maybe it's a storyline that is a little bit familiar, but imagine losing your dad, and your dad's your moral compass, and he's always there. And you're 11 years old, and you're trying to embark on this journey, which we haven't been through it, so we don't fully understand it, but trying to do your studies and go through puberty and understand who you are as a person, and also try and get drafted to play AFL and be a professional sportsman, it's a hell of a journey to go on without your dad. So good on him for getting this far, and he looks like he's going to be a player. So.
I get the feeling they went, we can't afford to not pick him. Yeah. Yes, we may have a surplus right now because Harry Edwards is coming through. Yep. So, we got one too many for this season and next season potentially, but we know Josh Kennedy's going to play his last season coming up. Jack Darling's maybe on the other side of his peak. I could see Bazzo playing forward with Oscar Allen in the years to come, and then you've got Harry Edwards and Tom Barrass and Jeremy McGovern in defence. If McGovern starts getting on the wrong side of things, say Barrass and Edwards, and Bazzo and Allen up forward. Like, he's a utility. He's not just a defender. He can play up forward and take a beautiful mark. So I think they went, we can't afford to let him go.
Yeah, so he mentioned that he played a little bit forward, probably for the first time in his junior career this season at Swans. But, it's early days. And you look at the versatility that, say, Oscar Allen brings. He can play almost any position, and he's learned that as he started through the system with West Coast. So, if you've got the qualities, you've got the qualities. Like McGovern played for us. He's drifted forward for us. He likes playing in the ruck as well. So, I think you're spot on with your assessment of just like, we can't let this guy through, so let's grab him. And that's exactly what you should be doing. If you think someone's capable of being a superstar, then just grab him. So Jack Williams played for Rossmore and then East Freo. So he's the project.
Yeah, I was going to say, screams project player.
So big, tall guy, still skinny as, but in his highlights, like, he's clunking marks. And he mentioned Oscar Allen in like the first 30 seconds of talking to the media, being like, this is the guy I'm watching. Here's what I'm looking at. I want to be able to play everywhere. I want to be athletic. Like, that's what he prides himself on. He can jump. He can move for a big guy. He's 198 centimetres. Yeah. And he's only started playing ruck more recently. But, forward rucks, like, you got to have one. Like, you have to have one to win a flag. So we may as well put one in the system.
Yeah, it's planning for the future a lot with him. And also, there aren't many of those players. I mean, you can find a lot of midfielders and outside players. Like, a player of his size, who seems very adept leading up at the ball, taking marks and kicking goals. He's young. He's only 17, I think. So I very much doubt he plays next season, but you groom him for the future. And I think that's a shrewd pick. And, he'll give us a lot of options moving forward. Hopefully, maybe he doesn't step up and make the grade. Who knows? But I think that was a smart selection. And then the one we love was Greg Clark. So we actually wanted to make sure of that pick so much that we traded away a future 4th rounder just to ensure that we nabbed him and no one else took him. And you can see him playing round 1.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, there's a little bit of Matt Prittis about it, which, it's the Subi link and, 24, which is about the same age. I mean, he came on in leaps and bounds this season, but he talked about coming through as a 17, 18-year-old. And even further back, like when he was 14, 15, he had people telling him, like, you're going to be an AFL player. Like, you're on the path. Like, this is going to happen. And then he doesn't get drafted when he was 18. And he said, he was like, oh, I probably believed the hype and just thought it was going to happen. And then even after having that realisation, still it's another 5 years until he's on a list. So I think he understands what's required to be at the level. But there's no doubt West Coast they've got him to the cup to play footy, So when you bring in, we've got Connor West, who's a different kind of player, more of a role player, a bit tougher. But Greg Clark said that he can play inside, he can drift outside if needed. He's played at halfback for Subiaco previously as well. So again, like I've said, I think he feels that need straight away, and that opened up other areas for us to target. So there's going to be competition for those midfield spots. Like, Clark's not just going to sit back and let Redden and Sheed and those guys, drift along. So that's exciting, and he seems like a ripping bloke and financial advisor, so he's switched on. He can look after the boys' investments and tax as well. So, multi-dimensional.
Yeah, he's 24, so he's not going to waste a minute. He wants to play now. Interestingly, I think he was more of an outside player coming through, but the leg speed wasn't there. And someone said, you just got to remodel your game. You can't be just an outside player. You have to win it inside or you're never going to get drafted. And so he did that over a number of years. And we do need that in our list as well, which again, I understand why people were negative about the Chesser pick because they know that we need some inside mids. And you've touched on it. He can come in and add some competition there if we have injuries. If we don't have injury concerns and Shuey, Yo, Sheed are there every week, then it'll be hard for Clark to play as much as he wants, and Redden, of course. But, Redden's already got that shoulder surgery. Maybe he doesn't play round 1, considering how delayed his start to the season will be, or pre-season will be. There's a big opportunity there. He's just a great player to have on the list. I think someone like him, along with the youngsters, which they always do, he puts the wind up some of these blokes. He puts the wind up a Gaff and a Sheed, and he says, I'll take your spot if you've got issues like you had on occasions last season. So, I love that call. That was the one that really, it put a smile on our faces at the end of draft night. Went bang, we love that. That is just, it may not be Matt Prittis, but it's got that feeling about it, which is cool.
So do we have Port Adelaide's number just at the top of our phone? Since they gave us the second round, they were the ones that we gave the 4th round to, which was like, who's the first club we can call here? Just get ours into the draft. Yeah,
it's like that scene in Draft Day, the movie, where Costner plays it beautifully. I don't think we quite did that, but I think all in all, we've done a smart one there, and hopefully Chesser ends up being a gun and Clark can play his role as well. So the rookie draft, we didn't take anyone, did we?
Is it a surprise that we passed on a chance to have a bit of a flyer on someone?
I don't know. You know this stuff a little bit better than me. I don't know how it works now. Can you pick up guys later on? There's still spots in our list we can fill, but I think there's a chance with some other drafts later on that we can add to it or something like that?
It's called the SPP, right. The Supplementary Player.
Jesus, confusing these days.
But you can sign players up to certain windows and stuff. And so, I mean, maybe I might be jumping the gun a little here, but with the Shepherd stuff, I wonder if they're leaving an extra spot open just in case something happens. The one player that I would have wanted in the rookie draft is the guy that went to Collingwood, which is Charlie Dean, because he would actually replace Shepherd almost in the 22 if something does go awry or if things don't work out. The only thing is that he went pick 2, so we would have had to get him in the national draft because we were pick 10. So, but other than that, I think most of it was redrafting players that you'd delisted. There weren't that many genuine rookie selection. And to be honest, it's a bit of a shame because that's not what the rookie list is supposed to be for. Yeah. It's supposed to be for guys you can take a little bit of a risk on, like a Matt Prittis and a Dean Cox, who you're not sure if they're going to make the grade. Anyway, that's a discussion for another day, but no extra rookies, but there is probably an extra spot if we need it.
It doesn't look great with Shep. Yeah, it's really worrying. I mean, if you're in his shoes and you're getting headaches and you're having symptoms, you'd be worried about playing on, really scared about it. It'd be a devastating way for him to end a wonderful West Coast career. And maybe that's why, again, he slowed down a bit last season, potentially. I'm not sure. He did cop one of those big knocks late in the campaign, and yeah, maybe that's when it all came to a head, pardon the pun, for him. Mm-hmm. Look, we have got players in that area if he is to retire now. Shannon Hearn, by the way, looks in ridiculous nick. Did you see him in the photo? He looks so good. So he looks like he can have a good season. We know we've got Joshy Rotham and Tommy Cole and Jacko Nelson and Alex Witherden, and we want Harry Edwards to play. So we've got options back there. But Shep, is borderline an Eagles legend. Certainly a great. It'd be devastating if this is the way he goes out.
Now, what I would like to see is there's a COVID inactive list, right? There should be an inactive list that you can put a player like a Venables on, where they've got this career-threatening concussion or whatever it might be, and it doesn't take up a spot on the list, and they're allowed to recover, still on the salary cap, but they're just sort of stashed away, because that, for Shep to have to potentially make the decision to retire when he's still not sure, it puts the Eagles in a precarious list position. So, I mean, look, we want him to play on. We want him to be playing round one. So that's a number one priority. But obviously there's more tests that has to happen. Think about how bad it can potentially be. You want to make sure they're making the right decision. So all we can say is, get well, and hopefully he's going to make a full recovery, whether he plays another game or not. Health comes first. But we want to see him playing for West Coast. For sure. You put the feeler out for some questions, I think, this morning, Drewy. So there was a few that came through, or a few takes on the draft. Let's share some of them with the listeners and get to them. Stand by. Tommy Carullo would have been front and centre, I'm sure. No doubt. So, Alex Paul, who's a friend of the show, he's got a couple of points for us. So picking up the free future second rounder, great business. No doubt about that. Yeah. With Port Adelaide still being good, it probably ends up being about, 32, 33 maybe. But it's still a free pick. And you can get a good player in the 30s. So, yep, that's great. Gives us trading potential as well if you want to use it. And it'll probably, if not, it's 3 picks inside the top 40 again. Yeah. So, Chesser doubts premature, projected top 5 a couple of years ago. We've touched on that. And drafting Clark completes a super balanced draft. Reservations about drafting 2 outside mids, but Clark slots straight in potentially for Redden. And talking about Hearn, did you see the photos of Petrevski-Seton? He looks big, he looks ready to go. So what's your take on Tim Kelly right now? I always look for Tim Kelly first in the photos, because I think he's come back a little bit big the first 2 pre-seasons he's had with the club. Some photos he looks skinny, others he doesn't. I don't know if it's just his body shape and just him. I can't work it out. Have you seen anything, or have you got a take on that? No, I think that's TK. I reckon it might even be week to week proposition for him. I think maybe he's a bit of a fluctuator. Anyway, we didn't find out about that until he joined West Coast. Geelong kept that real quiet. Obviously never posted any photos of him during the pre-season. Tommy Carmody, same thoughts I have with the draft. Every year, never understand criticism of recruits or the club, as the draft is always a gamble and never a guarantee. Looking forward to next year. Yep, we're with you, Tom, for sure. Shoyan Khan, I thought West Coast did very well and managed to plug gaps on the list, which you've noted, Garby. Excited to see the new guys settle in and try and be selected in the pre-season. Feeling confident with the list and the new coaching panel. We can bounce back quickly after a poor season. Nice Subi link between Schofield and Greg Clark as well. So looking forward to seeing what Jared can do with the stoppages. Dr. Footy Sausage. It's just a picture of a hot dog anyway. Interesting. I think the Eagles get a bit obsessed with underage form and good character. That's a fair call. But I don't watch more than 5 Colts game a year, so what do I know? Yeah. We're all in that boat. Too good call. Maybe we do. Jared Brander, I get it. People sometimes, maybe we scale back a little bit too much and try and steal one. And if Campbell Chesser doesn't turn out to be what we want, then that's a fair knock. I have no issue with people having a go in time. Yep. Let 2 years pass and see how things transpire. But doing it now doesn't make sense. But yeah, that could be definitely a valid criticism if he doesn't, live up to the pick. Yep. he says, good to hear we see Chesser as a powerful inside mid, but to start outside as he builds up his frame. Well, if he's got speed, he's going to be inside and outside his whole career. But, the thought of him running down the wing, bouncing, long, powerful kick, like the combination of good kick and fast is like, that's rare. Like when do you ever see that? Because it's normally the great athlete who's quick, but footy's maybe not his first language. But the fact that he's got both is exciting. And Shannon Walker, who's going to be our second ruck this year. I'm confused why we didn't rookie a mature age ruck as insurance in case of injury to Nick Nat.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about that because I really like Bailey Williams. I'm a Bailey Williams fan.
Yeah.
I think he can step up. Jamison, there's some reasonable reps on him, but I think Williams is ready to play the role. We don't want to play Oscar there, but he can pinch hit. We've spoken about Gov, who played a game at the end of last season in the ruck. With Harry Edwards coming through, maybe he does a bit more of that. I'm not as worried about it. I'd like to see Bailey Williams moved up into that role. I don't think we'd get better. Put it this way. I don't think we'd get better than Bailey Williams if we go on the market and take a second ruck somewhere. It's simply just insurance then. So we might as well look to use the kid.
Well, we're wasting time if we go out and get a 28-year-old, VFL player or whatever, someone who's played 30 games. Like we're bridging a gap that we don't need to. Like we need to work out if Bailey can do it, and the only way we can do that is by actually playing him. And I think the answer to that, the reason why, is because Jamison's nearly ready. Yeah. And they were upskilling him. They played him forward and back in the waffle last year, so he's had a look at both ends as well. Because if Jamison comes into the team, he's not going to be playing 80% ruck, right? Like at most he's going to be playing as a second ruck, doing things maybe at either end. So the answer to that is that we don't need another project because Jamison's ready to go. And then Williams is obviously, that's a bit further back. Jack Williams, that is. So if you take into account McGovern could do it at a pinch, Allen ideally not, but maybe Harry Edwards is 200 centimetres, he could do it. So Waterman, I don't know, just throw anyone in there. If Nick Nat's playing, then you just need someone to do that little bit. I think the days of 55% game time Nick are gone. I think that's off the table now, right?
I agree. I don't think Bailey can do it. Okay, let's say worst case scenario, Nick Nat's out, Bailey Williams is out. You got to say to Oscar, mate, you have to play ruck. It's not ideal, but for a month you have to play ruck. Yep. And we've got other players who can fill those roles because we want to play Harry Edwards. He should be in the 22. So someone else goes forward then, or we can make things happen, or Gov can play there. So I think if Vardy had said I'll stay for probably baseman salary, we would have taken that. But to go out and get someone else just for the sake of it, I don't think we're better off.
No, I'm with you. And it probably would have been great for everyone if Vardy could have done another year, but I can understand why he wanted to move back. And, Vardy probably solidified his place in West Coast folklore by getting the QR code on the foot for the goal.
That was ridiculous. That was so good. Genius. Yeah, in West Coast folklore, along with the play, of course. Drewy, that just about does us, mate. I've got to head to the airport and get back to Sydney tonight. I'm sure you got things that are not more important than this, but other things you have to do in life as well. So it'd be good to meet in person, mate, and chat all things West Coast Eagles. And I'm not sure if we'll do another one before the end of the season. Maybe, but we're building up to a bumper 2022, that's for sure.
Garby, it's been great to see you. Great to just be in your presence. To actually do and have a bit of back and forth is nice, rather than the spotty Wi-Fi at my place, which is just not getting any better. So we might have to do it by carrier pigeon in the future, because I'm not sure we're going to be able to do Zoom forever.
Love it. Thanks, Nest family. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all your feedback. Get on Twitter and let us know what you think. And have a great Christmas. Have a great New Year and a great summer. And we'll get fired up for the new campaign.
This week at Safeway, shop the 10 for $10 produce sale. With the 10 for $10 produce sale, get items like large avocados, mangoes, green, red, orange, or yellow bell peppers, cucumbers, large lemons, or 16-ounce bags of Signature Farms baby peeled carrots for the member price of just $1 each. Plus, select meats like Signature Farms 80% lean ground beef and Signature Select extra meaty pork loin back ribs are buy one, get one free this week. Hurry in before these deals are gone. Visit Safeway.com for more deals.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.